Welcome to our third video in our 5-video series talking about the topic of spiritual growth. Once again, my name is Pastor Tim Carpenter. I'm the pastor at Mercy Church in Newmarket, New Hampshire. In this spiritual growth video series, we're talking about the topic of spiritual growth and how we can help encourage others in their spiritual growth and how we can also personally invest in our spiritual growth. In the first video, we talked about foundations of spiritual growth, thinking about the topic and also asking ourselves, how do we view it and how does God view it? In the last session, we talked about people who would identify as non-believers. How can we help someone who's in that non-believer category take steps toward pursuing a relationship with Jesus? Today, we're going to talk about people in the investigating Jesus category. Again, this may be somebody that you know, and so the discussion will be, I think, helpful to have you think about how you can invest in someone to help them effectively investigate Jesus. And it's also for you, if you're in a stage right now where you're saying, I'm open to thinking about Jesus and spiritual things, and so I want to figure out what's my next step to investigate Jesus. In whichever of those two areas you find yourself, I believe today will be quite helpful. So let's talk about someone who's investigating Jesus, whether it's you or someone near and dear to you. A person who's in the investigating Jesus category is generally open to spiritual conversations and open to talking about God. They may be open to discussing or even thinking about going to church, and in particular, they're willing to talk about Jesus. The reality is that talking about God or a great spirit in the sky can be safe and kind of distant, but when we talk about the Christian perspective on a triune God, and in particular, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and ultimately the Savior of the world, things get a little bit more pointed and honestly a little bit more challenging. So the goal here is not to force people into conversation, but as God is working in someone's heart, whether it's you or someone you love, and they're willing to talk about, or you're willing to talk about Jesus, to travel down that road. Someone who's in the investigating Jesus stage is also open to the idea of investigating Christianity or learning more about the Christian faith. And so what are some good steps for someone who's in that stage? The first thing I would say is to either share or for you to understand the gospel. The gospel is the good news of God's love for humanity and his desire to draw us back into relationship with himself. Now, he does that through what Jesus does in his life, his death, and his resurrection, and ultimately his ascension to heaven, and the reality that one day Jesus will return. Understanding the gospel is a great place for somebody who's investigating Jesus to begin. We've got a great resource that we'll talk about in a minute. It's called The Story, and I think it's an excellent description of the story of what God is doing in the world. Another thing you can do if you're in the investigating Jesus stage is to get a hold of a Bible and start a Bible reading plan. We have Bible reading plans we can recommend through Mercy Church, and you can certainly hop onto the Bible app and click on plans and then start reading the Bible. If you're not familiar with the Bible app, you can hop onto the App Store, whether it's on your Android or your iPhone, and then you can look up YouVersion, YOUVERSION. That's a great Bible app. When you open the app, on the bottom of the page, you'll see plans. Click on that, and then you can engage in a Bible reading plan. Again, if you're interested, Mercy Church can send you or recommend to you some Bible reading plans as well. Another great thing to do if you're investigating Jesus is to go to a church service. Whether it's Mercy Church here in Newmarket, New Hampshire, or another Bible-teaching, gospel-centered church, attend a church service. Maybe you'll bump into somebody there who can help explain more about who Jesus is. But getting involved in a local church, even if you're not ready to jump in wholeheartedly, you're still in the investigation phase, that's a great place to be to learn more about who Jesus is. Now, what are some resources when it comes to investigating Jesus? Well, again, if it's at Mercy Church or somewhere else, meet with a pastor. Say, hey, I've got questions about Jesus. I'd love to talk to you about who Jesus is. That's a great place to go. Also, I can recommend the books The Case for Faith and The Case for Christ, both written by Lee Strobel. You can buy the old school hard copy version, or you can listen to it in an audio version as well. Lee Strobel is a well-known teacher, and his investigative process back when he was a journal led him to becoming a Christian and a follower of Jesus. That's a great resource if you want to learn more about Jesus and someone who investigated Jesus. One of the books I like to recommend is by Nicky Gumbel. It's called Why Jesus? It's a very short, small book, but it gives you a great insight into who Jesus is. Another great resource is the Alpha Course. You can take that at a local church, or you can connect online just by searching Alpha Course. That's a class that will take you through the foundations of the Christian faith and also teach you, again, about Jesus. I mentioned earlier this great video that takes you through the story of what God's doing in the world, the story of redemption. You can find it. It's called The Story, and you can go online to thestoryfilm.com. It's a short video that shows you what God's doing in the world, where Jesus fits into that story, and also it gives you an opportunity to respond if you're ready to say, yes, I want to begin a personal relationship with Jesus. I've put a couple videos together about what is the gospel and why the cross, and those will help give you, again, a sense of the centrality of Jesus in the Christian faith. I would also recommend BibleGateway.com. It's an online Bible, and it has lots of different versions, and again, places you can dig into a Bible reading plan. Just getting familiar with the story of Jesus by reading the Bible is an excellent way to learn more about him. If you want to dig deeper into understanding the Bible, there's a great YouTube channel called The Bible Project. And you can go to The Bible Project and then click on a video and it'll teach you about who Jesus is or what the gospel is or a particular book in the Bible. The last resource I want to share is called I Am Second. It's iamsecond.com, and it's about people who've committed their life to following Jesus. That resource is great because it's not just a theology lesson, it's a personal story and a personal experience of someone who came to the point of saying, I need to lay my life down and give it over to the Savior Jesus. It's a beautiful picture of how God transforms people's lives. So whether you're investigating or you're thinking of somebody who is, let me say something that's really important. It's a great thing to do some study on your own, but one of the best ways to learn more about Jesus is to investigate him with somebody else. So I would encourage you, if you're investigating Jesus, maybe get the Lee Strobel book about the case for Christ and then sit down and read it with somebody else. Get together on a regular basis and talk about it. Maybe you're the person who wants someone else who's investigating Jesus to come to faith. And so maybe you're the person to say, hey, I'd love to read this book with you, whether it's Why Jesus or The Case for Faith or something else. Maybe it's watching a video together and then discussing it. But God so often works through people. Pursuing our relationship with Jesus on our own is a piece of the puzzle, but I can tell you confidently when I hear stories of people who've moved from investigating Jesus to trusting in Jesus and becoming a new disciple, the majority of the times, the influence of another person in helping that person in the journey is massive. So don't do it alone. Grab a resource, connect with somebody else, and investigate Jesus together. In our next video, we're going to talk about the topic of becoming a new follower of Jesus, a new disciple, and how can we grow when we're in that stage. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.